All right, I just started recording. Well, first thing first, the code of conduct. So let me brief on that. Welcome everyone. My name is Sadir Zala. I'm one of the co-chair for the IBMCloud SubProject, and the meeting is being recorded. We will make it available on Kubernetes YouTube channel. So be considerate of what you say. Respect each other. Of course, we are a small group here. Well, with that, let's just start the call. I have put a link for the agenda. It's in the chat. So if you want to take a look, please do so. We request everyone to put their name there as an attendee, just for the call. So if you get a chance, please update it, or I will put your name there. We in the agenda, I mean, it's a small agenda for today. Let's start with the new attendees. And actually, again, because we're a small group, let's just introduce all of us, if that sounds okay. So, we have a couple new folks, and, so everybody gets an idea about what we do, right? So let me start with myself. Mike, yes, I will provide you the edit access. If you can share me your email, please, so that I can, add you there, right? Ben, you too, please, Anyway, so with the introduction, as I say, my name is Sadir Zala. I'm one of the co-chair for this sub-project. I am a contributor of Kubernetes, the org member. I'm also a maintainer for the etcd project. And, in general, I contribute to Kubernetes, contribute experience SIG and some other areas, besides this sub-project. But I will pass it to, I think in the row. So Richard, please, next.
Sure, I'm Richard Tice. I'm also co-chair with Sade. And I work on IKS and Rocks, which is our managed service for Kubernetes and OpenShift, and lead the cloud provider internally, the project there for that. So I'm the release manager for those two releases, or OpenShift and Kubernetes, and then when working on next steps here soon, hopefully, to open source our cloud provider, the CCM. All right, that's it.
Perfect. Thanks, Richard. Khalid, your turn.
Sure. I'm Khalid Ahmed. I work at IBM as well. I work primarily on the software side around the cloud pack, specifically around hybrid cloud management and AI ops. Our cloud packs leverage Kubernetes as kind of the underlying foundation, and also on the IBM cloud as well. So I'm interested in all the things that are going on around the delivery of Kubernetes on the IBM cloud and in other clouds as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Khalid. Mike, would you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mike McCune. I respond to Mike, Michael, or El Mico, which is my online handle. I work for Red Hat on our cloud infrastructure team. So I'm doing a lot of work on OpenShift with the cloud providers that we create that are for our machine API and cluster API implementations, but I'm also getting into working on the out of tree, CCMs that are coming in the next couple versions of Kubernetes. So I've been doing some work with the IBM Cloud Provider for machine API, and also starting to interface with the IBM Cloud Provider for the CCMs as well. So I just wanted to kind of see what's going on and yeah, join the community.
Well, welcome, Mike. It's great to have you here. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I am Ben. I work at IBM on the Quantum sub team. I do cloud infrastructure work, so provisioning the Kubernetes clusters, the Rocks clusters, getting things migrated between accounts. Just another user.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for joining the call today, Ben. Nimesh, would you like to introduce yourself as well, please?
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Nimesh Bhatia. I'm manager and program director for open technology development at IBM. And yeah, my team contributes cloud and container software, including Kubernetes and other cloud technologies. So happy to be here and happy to help another.
Great. Thanks, Nimesh, and thanks for your support here. With that, one thing I want to mention before, so we go to the next one in the agenda, for Ben and Mike, right? If you have any questions, let us know at any time, right? We have a Slack channel for the sub-project on Kubernetes Slack. Welcome to join if you haven't already did. We have mailing list as well, and you can, like I said, small groups. You can ping us anytime on the Slack. But just to brief the sub-project, which was a special interest group itself earlier, right? And with the consolidation of cloud provider special interest groups, we are now part of the cloud provider special interest group, the IBM Cloud Provider, and a few other cloud provider sub-projects, right? We are mainly, engaged around IBM Cloud Provider, the CCM architecture now, and then IBM Cloud Cluster API project. So we have a GitHub repository there, and actually a good work is going on there to support cluster provisioning on different infrastructure on IBM Cloud. So you can take a look there as well, right, about what's going on. But with that, let's move to the next item in the agenda. And that would be Richard. If you want to brief on the cloud provider open source progress, Richard, I think something that I think you plan to share today, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to brief everybody on what we're doing in that area. So I know those that have been around on the project here for a while know that we've had a goal of providing the CCM open source for a while, but we lacked as a requirement, right? That somebody come into us and say, yeah, we really need this thing. So we've kind of set it on the back burner as far as a priority level, but now it's coming to the front. We'd like to provide the CCM for use with OpenShift, IPI and UPI based installations, cluster installs on IBM Cloud. So that means that we would need to provide open source of our CCM. And that's one of the next steps that we want to take here. And I know from our perspective on the community is like, we can go a couple routes, and I think I think if we look at the landscape of CCMs within Kubernetes, what they would want you to do is deliver your open source to say an IBM Cloud, GitHub, right? Open, and then eventually you meet some requirements and you can bring your CCM into Kubernetes org, right? And I don't think it matters either way, but to start, what we've been considering doing is pushing a clone of our internal repo up to IBM Cloud's GitHub, and then that is our starting point. And then eventually we would be able to potentially, whatever we'd have to get a cap approved and merged for bringing that into the Kubernetes org like other cloud providers are today. But that would be more of a long-term goal rather than the short-term is just to get it up there for OpenShift, IPI, UPI support. So that's at a high level, that's what we're looking at doing. There's a few internal things that we have to organize. Like we have some, if you will, like some tech debt that we've accumulated because we haven't gone open source. So we have to clean that up. One thing I wanted to ask Sade, we had an approval a while back to do this, and I don't know if we need to revisit it. And if you have any contacts for, like, from a process standpoint, I can reach out to make sure that we're doing the right thing and we get this thing put in the right location for everyone's needs.
Yeah, I think we are good to go, Richard. Okay. But I will get back on that to you.
Okay.
So I'll get back on that to you.
That sounds good. So yeah, that's where we stand. Are there any questions or any comments on items we should take into consideration as we go down this path?
So one question, Richard, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more. Like I said, we didn't have use cases in the past, but now that we are seeing the requirement, and you did mention, but I think I missed that point. I was trying to get some notes here. Mm-hmm. You said this is basically the IBM Cloud Provider CCM will be used with the OpenShift. Is that what you mentioned?
Yes, correct. So we use it today with OpenShift within our ROCs offering. And then we also use it. So the same code is used for ROCs and IKS, so both OpenShift and Kubernetes. And we'd like to use it again with OpenShift, but not a managed offering of OpenShift. So it's going to be through the OpenShift installer, whether it be through an IPI installation or a UPI installation, but you're basically taking out the managed piece. So there's some things in our CCM that were written and made assumptions that we're running in a managed service. And so we have to clean those up, because in OpenShift, we won't have that, all of our microservices that go along with the managed service and all the tooling there. We don't have that. So those are the few things that we have to take into consideration, a little bit of the tech debt, if you will, that I was referring to. Ideally, we'd like to have one source that, it works in all of these environments. We think we can do that. But we're just talking about internally, what's the best way to approach that is. So hopefully that gives you an idea. A lot of other cloud providers have this, and there's things going on in the background as far as, oh, sorry, Mike, you had a question?
I didn't want to interrupt you. I just was gonna.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like what you're talking about makes good sense to me. It seems like the other providers who, the other clouds who are doing this, they create a repo in the Kubernetes. Like you said, they make a KEP. Those KEPs are usually pretty small. They put a repo in the Kubernetes, K/cloud provider, whatever. And then usually OpenShift, we just fork from there. So I think your goal of having like a single source for all this, it's totally achievable. Usually what'll happen is we'll take it from the upstream source, or the Kubernetes repo, and then we'll fork it into the OpenShift organization. And then usually there's a couple changes we'll have to add there. I know for the CCMs, we'll probably have to have like a different Docker file for building them. And, we might have to have a few extra, just pieces of metadata that we put in there. But usually it's just a couple minor patches that we carry on top of whatever's in the upstream. And then we just rebase on the upstream, whenever we need to.
And for those things, Mike, is it legit if we just, to help you all out, to have some of that as part of our process, just to have the Docker file, whatever you need, right? Just to make it work? Or is that something you guys are going to do anyway when you fork it?
Yeah, like obviously if you put that stuff in the upstream repo, like that would be perfect for us. That would be great. The downside is that then you have a Docker file that's like pulling something from, redhat.com's registry or whatever. And that might look weird to some people because we put in so we'll have a community Docker file where you could build using all community artifacts. And then we have usually a rel Docker file, which is like, it will pull the rel artifacts. So you would need a subscription to be able to pull those kind of containers. So when we create our release payloads, this is all done, by automation, but we also like to provide a Docker file that like a community member could repeat what we've done, using their own tooling or whatever. So like,
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So it might be a little weird to put some of those artifacts into the upstream repo, but I guess like you guys are in control of it, or the community is in control of it. So we can put whatever we want to there, right?
Well, that's true. I just don't want to cause extra trouble. So if you are all doing that, it makes sense just to keep doing the same for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I don't really know what the relationship's going to look like going forward, because we're forging a little bit of new territory here, which is like in the past, it's all been Red Hat teams maintaining these, like, not the CCMs, but like the CAPI cloud providers and whatnot. And now we're getting into a territory where we're probably going to have IBM Cloud repos in the OpenShift namespace. And I think ideally we'll have IBM employees who are the ones maintaining those things. So there's probably there's probably a scenario here where even though we have OpenShift / cloud provider IBM Cloud, you know, you and people on your team are the owners of that repo and can make all the changes there and everything. So it'll still be, you know, it won't necessarily be a Red Hat only operation at that point.
I see. Okay. And is the same true for other cloud providers when you fork theirs, like Amazon or
right? So for the
Google's?
cluster,
Okay.
yeah. So I'll just try to break it into two different cloud providers. So far, the CCMs, we've only taken the AWS cloud provider from upstream, and we've forked that, and we're building tooling around that. The OpenStack guys are doing something similar as well, but those are the only two we have so far there. On the cluster API side, because our cloud providers share like a common ancestry with the cluster API stuff, we do fork from those cluster API repos, but then in some of the cases, we carry additional patches and they don't really look the same anymore. So we're not too concerned about rebasing from upstream in some of those cases. It's kind of a messy situation, but I think that going forward, because we're bringing in IBM Cloud and, you know, there are others coming too, like Equinix and Alibaba and whatnot, I think we're starting to look at this hybrid approach where we would have teams from the actual, you know, providers doing maintenance on it and everything. So I think we'll see more and more of that as we go forward. And then ideally, you know, who knows what will happen with cluster API, but ideally there'll become a point where we could consume the upstreams much more directly than we are now. And I think that's where we'd like to be, but it's going to take us time to get there.
Okay, any consuming upstreams, that would be like, for the most part, you take all upstream and then you add like your Docker files and other things on top of it, but still,
right.
That would still be the case? Okay.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But like, I don't know if you've seen some of the projects we have internally. You might have seen Hypershift, because I know that they're talking about it a lot for some of the IBM Rock stuff, but you know, we're evaluating using cluster API more and more heavily. And I think within the next 6 months, you'll probably see a decision from Red Hat about like how deep we're going to integrate that. And if we decide to integrate it deeply into the main part of OpenShift, then I think you'll see the providers we have now will start to look more and more like the upstream ones. We'll try to get them as close as possible, you know, to the upstream at that point.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. And I see the challenge, of course, you know, consuming the upstream one, right? With the interest is being in more than few cloud providers, right? It's not just one or two. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that is a challenge, you know, of course.
Totally.
Yeah. All right, great. Thanks, Mike. Let's move to the next one in the agenda. Richard, would you provide updates on the connectivity part?
Yeah, I just want to provide an update on connectivity. So we've been evaluating connectivity recently to replace our current open VPN-based solution, where you can you know, proxy between your two separate networks. In our managed service, right, we have the control plane network for the master side control plane components, and then we've got the customers, you know, provisioning workers for their worker nodes, and setting up a VPN between the two, so you can do kube control logs and whatnot. So we've been looking at connectivity, which is a replacement that Google really started really working on, and others have been contributing to as well, so that they can replace and remove the SSH tunneling they had in Kubernetes, right? So anyway, I just wanted to give an update because I think it's a really cool project, and it seems to work really well, perform well. But if you do get down and want to start using it, I posted a few notes that from our recent investigation. So if anybody's interested, there is an issue that we found is really important to get fixed. There's a PR available for that. I think Caesar from the Red Hat team told us about this, and indeed, it's really critical for running this if you're doing it, and then based on version 0019. And then we also open in our request for enhancement to help better integrate connectivity with OpenShift. And so that's what I've listed there as well. But anyway, just wanted to provide that as for folks' awareness if they're looking at similar solutions.
Okay. Yeah, that was great. Thanks for that update, Richard.
Yeah, and I guess it to Mike, and if I don't know if from the Red Hat side, if you all are working on or looking into using connectivity in you know, those type of environments, whether it's managed or if separating the control and data plane networks from each other.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I don't do a lot of direct like networking work, but I've seen on our internal mailing list, I've definitely seen people talking about connectivity and kind of discussions about how we could use it. So like, I could probably dig up a name or something if you wanted to connect with someone to learn more about, what's OpenShift doing with that.
I mean, it wouldn't be too bad. I'm curious, primarily, like if they have experience on the testing side, or like how it performs for them functionally. I mean, if they're running into any issues, I'd love to have some feedback on that as we are looking at using it more and more.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the talk I've seen has been kind of high level, like we'd like to use this for doing, exactly kind of stuff you're talking about, like how do we connect and not use like a VPN or something. I don't remember seeing discussions about people integrating it into their test platforms yet, but I can take a poke around and I'm sure I can dig up a name and just like send them your way and then.
Oh, okay, great.
Questions. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. All I had on that one.
Okay. No, thanks, Richard.
Yep.
Well, then it just comes to the open discussion. Any other questions from anybody? Mike, Ben, Nimesh, or anyone else? Anything, especially Mike or Ben, if accepting new members here. If you have any questions, we can discuss here, or because we can always take it, later on Slack, right? So.
Yeah, I guess
Yes,
like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
No, sorry. I was just want to say sorry. I joined late. No, I don't have any question. Thanks.
Hey, yeah, Ben, I didn't even see you, so.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you joined. So, hey, Ben, would you like to I know we have a couple new folks on the call, like to introduce yourself, just very quickly, so that Mike and Ben get an idea.
I'm Benedetto. I work for SysDig, and I've been working on IBM Cloud and Kubernetes and IKS. And so I take part to this. I'm interested in what's going on. And that's it. Thanks. And sorry for being late.
Oh, no worries, no worries. I'm glad you could join. So that's great. Okay, so I'm sorry. I think Mike or Ben, you had something to say. I interrupted you, or?
No, I had nothing. I was just going to say that I wasn't prepared to show up today, so like had no thoughts.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, and that's totally fine.
So yeah, I was going to ask a question more from kind of a planning perspective and whatnot. And I don't know if we have any sort of idea about this yet, but in terms of the IBM Cloud CCM, the out of tree provider, are we looking at trying to get that into OpenShift for 4.10 or 4.9, or like what? I guess what are you thinking? How far along is the work? Like, I'm just kind of curious.
I think 4.9 would be our ideal target. With 4.10 is kind of the fallback, if you will. So, well, the state of it in 4.9 would be TBD, like how mature it would be. I'm not sure, right? Internally, it's mature. Like, I mean, we've been running our managed service for years. So I think it's fairly good from that standpoint, but we're bringing a new animal here in as far as like all these assumptions we've been able to make, can't make anymore. That's, I think, where we're going to end up finding some hiccups. But anyway, yeah, so our goal has been 4.9 as far as I'm aware, and it continues to be that to date as well.
Okay, cool. Because like we have a group internally that's working on like our, we have an operator now that's going to be doing all the deployments for the CCMs and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like, we have a group that meets weekly to sync on that stuff. And I'm just wondering, like, does it make sense? Like, should we get someone from the IBM side, like invited to that meeting so that at least we, because we're accelerating work there. We're built, the AWS one is built, the OpenStack one is kind of in the process, and we're starting to set up CI for these things. So if you're at the point where you think it might be beneficial to kind of plug in with our developers who are doing that, and we could probably accelerate like sharing information and kind of getting the IBM Cloud stuff into CI and whatnot. That might
Yeah,
help, kind
I
of-
think we, even if we're not ready to contribute like today, we should get involved. I agree. That makes really good sense. And you could start with me, Mike, and I could poke a few folks here to see if they also want to be involved, because I think there might be some folks on our end as well beyond myself that would want to be in those conversations. I don't know if you guys want to have a small audience or if it doesn't matter if we.
Well,
invite
there's
a
only
few
like 4 of us, like engineers who are working on it so far. So we
Okay.
kind of meet up. We kind of sync up on Wednesdays to discuss like problems that, that we're running into and stuff like that. So I figure, we're trying to, we're really trying to be aggressive about hitting 4.9, for releasing this stuff. And that's our plan. And if like, it might be beneficial just to have, some of the engineers from the IBM side who are working on this join in, because we're talking about problems that are hitting every CCM we're working with, and just, platform kind of problems. So like, these are things you're bound to hit.
Yeah, I'd love to be involved. Yeah. If you want to, if you don't mind, would you be able to add it to the agenda topics, like a link there, or maybe some other details once you have access?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. For now, if you can put in the chat, Mike, I can add in the agenda, right? But I will be giving you access,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I just have the meeting on like an internal calendar, so I could certainly invite you to it, Richard. I don't know if I can get a link to the meeting though.
No worries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
there's
okay.
no worries at all.
Whatever you have is good.
Yeah, and I mean, Richard would be perfect contact for that. I would like to keep in loop as well. So if it's something optional, if you can add me, please do so. But like Richard said, maybe 1 or 2 more folks from IKS team, right, Richard? If it's needed, yeah, they can get involved.
So I will invite Richard to that meeting, and then like we can go from there and just see who else needs to be invited. And I'm going to put a link to the repository where we're doing the operator work, which is kind of the central location for this. So that might be a good link to put in the notes there, just as something to review, because what we're trying to do is build up documentation and like architecture notes. Like a lot of this isn't there yet, but like we want that to be the central location where we could go to kind of, for people who are building CCMs, to understand how they integrate into OpenShift.
Awesome.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, I have added the link in the agenda, so just for the reference.
Cool, thanks.
Yep. Well, thank you. All right. Well, that was great discussion. Anything else that we want to discuss? If not, I guess we can call this a meeting and continue collaborate on Slack, right? And we will have our next monthly meeting actually this month, so it will come sooner than later. So this meeting is supposed to be last week, but we had to reschedule because of a couple of conflicts, right? So the next meeting will be in 3 weeks. So alrighty, well, if there's no other topics, no questions, then thank you so much everyone again. Welcome Mike, Ben, again to these calls, and looking forward to continue the collaborations going forward. So thanks again, and I think I'm gonna hit stop recording now.